Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tori. I'm a librarian at the Public Library in Whitewater, Wisconsin. Thank you for joining us today to learn about LGBTQAI+ terms and resources. Today, we are going to hear from two organizations that offer services that can be accessed by Whitewater community members. First, we are going to hear from the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center. And at the end, we will learn a little bit about a national organization called the Family Equality Council. I will leave links to both of these organizations' websites in the description below. Enjoy the program.
Hello, and thank you for attending LGBTQ 101. My name is Deidre Williams. I am the Youth Program Coordinator at the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center. I am actually a proud graduate from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. So I was very happy when I was asked to present to the Whitewater Library today. So I'd first like to thank everyone for coming, and I hope through this presentation, you are informed of something new, you come up with a question that you can reach out to me at a later date or after this presentation. I've been working with youth for over 20 years, so it's my passion to help youth. Within the past 2.5 years, I began working at the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center, and I primarily work with youth. Our youth are considered ages 13 to 24. So normally we would be together and interacting together, and we'll have a couple of group norms and aspirations that we want to do. Throughout this presentation, if we were together, you would be more than welcome to ask a question as I go along. You wouldn't have to wait until the end, and we would ask that one person speaks at a time. The other thing is what happens here stays here. A lot of people tell personal stories, and it's just important that confidentiality stays within the group. One thing that we'll be looking into today is reflecting on your own social location and your positionality. So intersectionality was coined by a Black woman named Kimberly Crenshaw. And we look at the things within ourselves, like what is it about ourselves, our race, our class, our language, culture, ethnicity, gender, age, ability, sexuality, education, and how we're privileged in some areas and how in some areas, are we at a different level than others? Are we discriminated against due to some of those things? So sometimes we have to take a look at ourselves and see where there may be privilege, and that we have to think, how is this affected by others that may be around us? Also, with cultural competency versus humility. Cultural competency is when you feel like you learn everything you can about a culture, and so you feel like you're competent in it. Cultural humility is a lifelong process of learning. As an outsider, commit to understanding power and dynamics and embracing the complexity of experience. So one of the things speaking with the LGBT community, it's ever changing terminologies and everything, and everyone's culture, it changes through time. So we kind of want to look at it through a lens of humility, where you're always willing and open to understand, versus just learning and feel like, oh, I know everything I need to know, because everything is ever changing. So just to get into some terminology, I'll start with LGBTQ. So L, lesbian and gay together, is someone who experiences romantic, emotional, and or sexual attraction to people of the same gender. B, bisexual, someone who experiences romantic, emotional, and or sexual attraction to people of the same or other genders. T, transgender, someone whose gender identity does not match the sex they were assigned at birth. And Q. Q could be a number of different things. The two today is queer, which can be an umbrella term or refer to political, non-normative, or non-binary identities. So you could still be lesbian or gay and call yourself queer. It's just the overall terminology, like we said, an umbrella term that people tend to use to describe themselves. And questioning, someone who is questioning their sexual or gender identity. So some of the more common terminologies around sexuality: ally, someone outside the LGBTQ community who actively works to dismantle homophobia and transphobia. So an ally could be anyone, as long as they're fighting to work on the injustices that someone in the community is feeling, or an ally, for example, could be in my position as an advocate also. I help individuals in schools. If they're having issues with school, I'll go to the school and advocate for a youth. We've also helped guide people too on jobs. A lot of discrimination takes place on jobs. And so we do what we can do to help. Aromatic, a person who feels little to no romantic attraction, often on a continuum. Asexual also could be used as ace, a person who feels little to no sexual attraction, often on a continuum. Pansexual, a person who is attracted to people regardless of gender. So just to know, like, this is non-exhaustive. These are not the only terms. There's so many more terms. I'm still gonna go over a few more, but just to let you know, I just wanted to touch on some of the more common terms that are used. So same gender loving, also just SGL, label sometimes used by members of the Black community to express alternative to gay or lesbian. So instead of just saying I'm gay or lesbian, you can say SGL is used often, and same gender loving. Down low, or the DL. This term typically used by Black men who have sex with men. So MSN, men sleeping with men, who usually identify as heterosexual. This is a term in the past few years that's been really common, about men on the down low. It's normally like more of a negative tone to the down low. So it's not used as much in the LGBT community, but I find that it's used more so like with cis heterosexual people, to say someone is down low. Heterosexism, heteronormativity, the assumption that all people are heterosexual and that heterosexuality is the norm, stigmatization, denial, and/or denigration of anything non-heterosexual, homophobia. So a lot of times people do this, and without realizing, we talk to boys and say, "Where's your girlfriend?" Or we talk to girls and say, "Where's your boyfriend?" We're just assuming that everyone is heterosexual, which is not true. That's just how most people have known it to be. But now through education, people are learning new terms, new ways to approach people or to ask questions. Instead of saying boyfriend or girlfriend, you can ask, where's your partner? Something more gender neutral. If you're not sure, that way it could like help a person, like if they're already afraid to come out, or they're not ready to come out. You don't really want to put someone on the spot. So you can always ask, where's your partner? Do you have a partner? If that question is even like appropriate. So some more common terminology around gender. Gender identity. Someone's internal sense of what their gender is not always correlated with the sex assigned at birth, which is typically based on sex organs. So someone's gender identity, they may be born and assigned at birth, assigned as being a male, but that may not be what they identify with within themselves. Intersex. This covers a variety of conditions where people are born with chromosomes, hormones, internal sex organs, and or genitals that differ from typical definitions of male and female. And non-binary or genderqueer, someone whose gender identity falls outside of the male-female gender binary. So normally these people, they will always just say they're non-binary and not say I'm male or female. So some people may fall on the spectrum in between. And so they just tend to go by non-binary or genderqueer. So cisgender, someone whose sex assigned at birth matches their gender identity. So if someone was assigned female at birth and they still identify as female or pronouns with she or her, that's a cisgender person. Also, a cisgender person can still also identify as gay or lesbian. Gender expression or presentation. External display of someone's gender in their clothing, hair, makeup, movement, etc. So everyone may have days where sometimes they identify more, male or female. And that's just how some people choose to, display how they feel and present. Once again, your gender expression, that doesn't determine like if you're gay or lesbian, that's just how you feel and how you choose to present at that time. So cis sexism and cis normativity, the assumption that all people are cisgender and cisgender is the norm. Societal norms that enforce the gender binary, conflate sex with gender, and see trans, intersex, and non-binary folks as less than cis folks. Transphobia. So when introducing myself or anyone in my company or now, it's more common, you may have even seen when you're at meetings or other places on name tags, a lot of people present with their pronouns. So my pronouns are she, her, hers. And so what I like to do is show this short video of just to explain what are pronouns. And this video also talks about other pronouns outside of the norm that we normally use within the United States. We tend to use she, her, he, his, them, they. But this also has some other pronouns and it'll be explained in this video.
Wow.
Oh my God, okay.
So funny. So I have to do it that one.
What a break.
I don't.
Pronouns are basically words used to refer to a person rather than their name.
They, she, and he are all examples of common pronouns. He and she are gendered pronouns.
She's typically used by people who identify as female, and he's typically used by people who identify as male.
However, he or she pronouns are sometimes used by people who don't identify as strictly male or female.
Some people prefer gender-neutral pronouns. Gender-neutral pronouns are generally used by people who identify as genderqueer or non-binary.
A few common gender-neutral pronouns are they, ze, and a, but there are a whole array of gender-neutral pronouns.
People think long and hard about the pronouns they'd like to use and why.
If you use the wrong pronoun for someone, that's what's called misgendering.
When a person has new pronouns, it can take a bit of getting used to, but it's really important to use the right ones.
A person's identity is very important, and it's super important to respect that.
So when people use the wrong pronoun to me, I find that I've gone through all this effort to kind of come out and be myself, and it's kind of just thrown back in my face. Coming out for me was mainly awkward with a lot of people that used to know me. People didn't understand. I think there is a lot of misunderstanding. When people get my pronouns right, it makes me feel like I'm, like being myself, and people are responding to that and are just like respecting me as a person.
When people get my pronouns right, I feel respected by them, and I end up feeling a lot more comfortable around them. Sometimes if you identify someone with a different pronoun that they don't identify as, you can potentially actually upset them, and I don't think you should be upsetting someone in this process, and that's why I think it's very important to know what someone identifies themselves as and respect it.
It's not about like you're a terrible person if you mess up, or you're a terrible person if you take time to adjust. You're totally not. but it's more about making that extra effort for someone that you do care about, or just kind of being a bit considerate that everyone has different needs, and it's just a really cool thing to do for a person. And I think it's easy to not quite get that, or just see it as, there's a person who's mad at you, and outwardly they might be a little bit upset, but inwardly what they're feeling that's motivating that reaction is so much more an understanding that they're not hating on you. It's just that they really are probably a bit fed up, a bit hurt.
It's not always easy to come out and tell people that you're trans. Never assume someone's pronouns, just ask if you're not sure. Using the correct pronouns is a pretty big deal, and it's a really awesome thing to do. Genitals don't equal gender.
This is probably the biggest mistake people make. It's a pretty easy assumption to make, but genitals and body don't actually reflect anything about a person's gender at all.
Above all else, don't try and argue with this person, whether you personally agree or not. A person who's asking you to use those pronouns likely has put a lot of thought into it and trust you. Basically, what's more important, someone's anatomy or who they really are and their happiness?
Sometimes, however, you will slip up and use the wrong pronoun. It's not good, but it does happen.
Getting used to someone's new pronoun can take time.
And you may feel pretty awkward or even guilty when you make a mistake.
Some may sound pretty strange at first, and changing the words you use in general can be harder than expected.
If you do slip up accidentally, it's important to not lash out at the person or blame them. You might not pick it up instantly, and it's important to try hard on this. But if you do slip up, don't snap on it.
Just keep trying your best and you'll get the hang of it with time.
Don't freak out. Just make a quick apology, correct yourself, and keep going with the conversation.
Making a big deal out of it, it's probably going to make them feel bad and make the situation very uncomfortable for both of you.
If you hear someone deliberately or even accidentally using the wrong pronouns for a person, don't hesitate to pull them up on it and politely correct them.
Hopefully that helps to explain pronouns a little bit better and lets you know how much it can mean to a person. And it's super important to get them right as much as possible.
Something as small as a tiny word like that could have a huge impact on a gender diverse person, both how they feel at the moment and how they feel in the long term.
Having good, accepting, awesome, and loving people around you can really be life-changing.
Thank you so much for watching our video. This video was completely written, filmed, and edited by us, the gender diverse and same-sex attracted young people at -18. Help support trans young people by sharing this video far and wide. And please support the work we do by subscribing to our channel. We also built an app where you can learn new pronouns and practice how to use them. Go to -18.org.au/pronouns to check that out. Thanks for watching.
So thank you so much for watching that video. I hope that it kind of helped you understand pronouns and how people use them and how it makes them feel when they do use the appropriate pronouns. At this time, I would have taken questions because there's normally some questions after the video. However, at the end, my email address will be provided and you are more than free to reach out to me with any questions, any follow-up of anything. So some of the challenges that's faced by LGBTQ folks, especially LGBTQ folks of color, are they're more likely to be physically, verbally, and sexually harassed. There are higher rates of depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts, and they're more likely to engage in risky behaviors. Because of homophobia and transphobia and other intersections of oppressive systems, so already being discriminated against or oppressed, due to their sexuality or how they present their gender. They also have to face some challenges due to race and ethnicity. So all this combined makes it a little bit harder for even like LGBTQ folks of color. So in Wisconsin, LGBTQ folks are more likely to be unemployed, uninsured, marginally housed, food insecurities, and live below the poverty line. And this is directly related to job discrimination, housing discrimination, and harassment and violence, which is rooted in macro systems and public policies. We also have the worst health outcomes across the board: physical health, sexual health, and mental health within the LGBTQ. Trans folks have even worse outcomes because of discrimination. So the numbers of for trans folks specifically are even higher. So it's even higher than, say, a gay, lesbian Black woman. On top of that, if they're a transgender Black woman, they'll have even more, like, higher negative outcomes. So how can you support your trans and non-binary folks structurally? In policies and procedures. If you work for organizations, one of the things you can definitely work on are policies and procedures for your company. So advocating for inclusion of gender identity and expression in your work, non-discrimination policies, gender neutral bathrooms, health insurance coverage of trans health. So gender neutral bathrooms are definitely more common. That would be a great start, but also, your policies and procedures and health insurance coverage for trans health is very important. Education. Educate yourself and advocate for trainings at work. The Milwaukee LGBT Community Center, we do a lot of different trainings for companies. There's a lot of people, once they have these trainings, they understand more and realize some of the changes that can take place are very minimum, but it could be very effective to their employees. And advocate for LGBT folks locally, statewide, and nationally. And how to support interpersonally. So educate yourself and others around you and be an ally. So attending trainings like this, that's the start. You're educating yourself on how to better understand, and not go to the person to have them tell you exactly, because some people in the community feel like, make an effort on your own. They definitely will support you with the information, but sometimes it's exhaustive when they're constantly explaining themselves to others. So, and also another thing to work on is to work on using the correct pronouns. It's difficult for someone, they're misgendered. And when you do that, just correct yourself. If you do misgender someone, just correct yourself, even when that person isn't present. So if you're talking about someone and you misgender them, just correct yourself and keep going with what you're saying. That way you'll get in the habit of using the correct pronouns. Also is showing respect for that person. Also, validate and affirm people's identities and don't out people without their permission. If someone comes to you, that does mean that they trust you to tell you. And it's not your job to tell other people, if they're not out yet or how they identify. If they give you permission, that's fine, but never do that on your own. And recognize the trauma around the normalization of transphobia in our society. People tell jokes that are hurtful and harmful to individuals. So, just listening and knowing, like, sometimes being an ally and saying, hey, that's not cool. Can you not say that or do that? That makes a difference. And do not at all use their dead name. There can be a lot of trauma and triggering of negative emotions involved. So dead name. So a lot of times people change their name legally, sometimes not legally. You may have a family member, you've always known them as one name and they change their name to something else. Just give them that respect to use the name that they're choosing to use. And no, you may not get it right every time, but definitely making an effort, definitely is showing some respect and showing that you understand that person. And more tips for affirming trans and non-binary folks. Be aware of local and online resources for transgender, non-conforming, non-binary folks. So one resource, the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center. I'm not too familiar with everything that's in Whitewater as a resource. The good thing now is what we've discovered through the pandemic is we can reach more people by virtual learning. One thing I know some people in Whitewater may have wanted to come to the center for a support group and couldn't make it. So now we have that option where you can join virtually into our groups, or you can, just reach out and we'll definitely help you if you're a person who's looking for a resource for yourself, or if you're looking to support someone in your life. Another thing, put pronouns on your ID and in your email signature. Get safe space stickers. Find ways to visually show you're an ally in your workspaces and everyday life. It is more common now to see pronouns on IDs and in email signatures. Safe space stickers, just small stickers from an LGBT org that can be put like in the corner of your window on your door. It kind of just shows that you're an ally and that you're someone that they could possibly come to. And check your privilege. Other people have different experiences than you. You may not see the discrimination or know of it that an individual person is going through, and you may work at the same place and you may feel like that person isn't, but you never really know what someone else is going through. So as we discussed before, just think about where you sit with your privilege. And if someone comes out to you, don't make it about yourself. See what they need from you. Basically asking, how can I support you? Thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you for trusting me, because it takes a lot usually for folks to come out and share, and share that with you. So reducing barrier number one, reluctance to disclose in the workplace. So think about where you work. Does your company have visual cues that signal affirmation and acceptance? LGBTQ visibility on websites and brochures, materials, resources, gender neutral bathrooms. If you just think about your workplace, is there anywhere that you will see that someone may feel welcomed or know that it's a safe space? And application forms, are they inclusive? Ask their name and affirm that it doesn't have to be their birth name. And at times you do need the birth name, but normally if you can have something on the application process that says preferred name, and make sure that, that preferred name is used after the application process. Reducing barrier number two, LGBTQ inclusion. Advocating for ongoing trainings and workshops like this one. Two, and affirming policies with your company, both staff and clients. So make sure there's maybe at least one training a year that reaches all the staff in the organization. And what policies in your company for both your staff and clients do you have? Becoming a competent ally means educating yourself and other employees, even advocating for changes within your organization to become more inclusive and affirming. And things to know, knowing LGBTQ resources and referrals in your community and online, and knowing your own company's policies on LGBTQ inclusivity. And this can also be translated into your personal life, especially if you have a loved one who identifies as LGBTQ. Do you have any resources for them? Are you working with them to help them find the resources? And so in relation to the workplace still, once employees are in the door, do be open-minded, affirming, non-judgmental, ensue confidentiality, and ask how can support them. Don't assume that people are heterosexual or cisgender. Don't out them to anyone without their consent. Don't expect your employee to educate you or ask to explain their relationships or bodies to you. I've talked to people where they've been put in uncomfortable positions at work, ask questions that definitely does not affect their work performance. If there's nothing concerning their work performance, there's really no need to ask them questions about any of these things. And all of this is also true as a workplace ally. A lot of time we don't have the energy or time to educate folks which is why these trainings and identity-based centers are so important. So basically, the employee, however they identify, they shouldn't have to go around and educate everyone. That's not their job. You know, the employer's job is to find someone to come in and do that training, not the employee. And reducing barrier number 3, structural barriers. So knowing your own institution's policies and your local and state policies. And how can you make your voice heard? And knowing how these decisions are made. And advocating for ongoing trainings and workshops like this once and for all, staff and administration, and affirming policies within your institution. Recognizing that discrimination means many LGBTQ folks struggle with health insurance or stable jobs or housing. A lot of people who are discriminated and lose their jobs once people find out they're, trans or gay or lesbian, non-binary, they may lose their jobs. That's an ongoing struggle with talking to individuals, keeping a job and job security. It's important because that's one of the reasons that's one of the reasons that they are a lot fearful with starting new jobs or being on a job search, because a lot of times if they identify a certain way, they're often overlooked for jobs, and they're just as good or better employees, as the other people already employed with the companies. So now, shifting away from there, what I would like to talk about is the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center's programming. And as I stated earlier, all of our support groups, individual counseling, it's all virtual, online, chat-based. We are not in person yet. So definitely, if you want to join any of our groups that I'm going to talk about, you're more than welcome to join them. We would love to have you. So we do offer free counseling to individuals, couples, and families. We don't take any cash, any insurance claim, any insurance at all. You just reach out to one of our therapists, licensed therapists, and you will be able to participate. So we have support groups and meetings. We have a youth mental health support group, and that is for ages 13 to 24. It's a general LGBT support group. Generally, the range in that is like 14 to 17, 18, because we do have adult groups that begin at 18. So that kind of determines where you are in your life. If you're already living on your own, may face more adult issues, you may join the adult group, versus you might stay with the youth if you're still in school and still facing some of those issues. Then we have a youth transgender, non-conforming, non-binary support group. Also serves ages 13 to 24. Then there's an 18 plus transgender, non-conforming, non-binary support group. Then we have an LGBTQ disability support group. This is one of our newer groups. One of our staff is actually in a wheelchair and started programming for LGBTQ folks who have disabilities, and it's been pretty popular with people. It's something that there's not many of those types of groups, so we're happy to be able to host that. We also have a group called Circle of Recovery. That's our substance use support group, and that's open to 18 and up. And then we have FAB, which is 50 and better support group. We also have a strong, it's considered our older adults programming. We have a strong, dedicated group of participants who are with us quite often. So for youth programming, it's called Project Q. We have drop-in services. And right now, our drop-in is also virtual. And we are online Mondays from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. for the summer. During the school year, it's 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. During those times, we talk about basically everything that's going on. It's not as structured as the support groups, but it's just kind of a way to talk and let off steam and, let your peers know, staff know, volunteers know what's on your mind. We often have guest speakers who will come. We recently had a student from UWM who's a dance major who came and did some relaxation movements with us, which was very well liked by participants, volunteers, and staff. We've had field trips. We've gone to different places, like they had a teen night at the art museum. We did an escape room. We did paddle boats by the lakefront. So we try to get individuals out and do things. And so right now, we're really hopeful that we can get back started with in person so we can get back together and socialize and just do those types of things that we've been doing all throughout the summers. So we also we have a licensed youth therapist. So generally you'll see that therapists, depending on what you're, after having a conference with the therapist, it's normal counseling once a week or bi-weekly. We have a clothing closet, so we have gender affirming clothing that individuals can have, shoes, makeup, hair, like wigs, all types of clothing. And we have a food pantry. Our food pantry is run strictly off of donations. GE has been a generous donator of that, providing us food and money to get the food for individuals. And with our food pantry, unlike with some, you have to present like a piece of mail and prove your name and those types of things. We do not ask for any of those types of things. You're able to come once a week to pick up food. We also provide bus tickets for individuals to come back and forth to our support groups and drop in. So our transgender services, one of the things that we have our therapists do, our counselors provide consultations and letters of support for gender affirming treatments and surgeries. So a lot of times, one of the things that some people may get is called top surgery, where the breasts are surgically removed. You often need a letter of support from a licensed therapist, and we are able to provide that for you. Also, our transgender coordinator created a name change workshop. So that workshop offers guidance and support through the legal name change. The center is able to cover the cost for a limited number of individuals who are in need. That's $300. And our transgender coordinator decided to come up with this workshop because when she went through the process of getting her own name changed, it was pretty, somewhat difficult. You had to go to different offices, go to court. You have to get a publication in the newspaper. So it's just a lot. So she figured if she already knew how to do it, it would be helpful for us to be able to provide that service and help individuals with that. Also, we have support groups for youth and adults. So for our AOTA counseling, our substance use counseling, we have Circles of Recovery, which is a 12-step anonymous meeting. So it's not directly the 12-step program, but it takes some of those parts of it, and it goes hand in hand with some, different things that counselor put together to help individuals. Then there's Circles of Reflection. So it's more so of a support group for individuals about their everyday life. Usually they have substance use issues, past use, or, in recovery. Also, we have individual and substance use counseling. And one of the exciting things that we have going on now is recovery coaching. Our substance use counselor is also a recovery coach, but also now we are offering the class to individuals to become recovery coaches. And this is something like very helpful. It's something you can definitely put on your resume. It's normally a course that costs over $1,000. And the center is offering it for free to individuals. The individuals just need to buy the books to go with the course. So if you're interested in becoming a recovery coach, You can definitely email me and we can discuss, what's needed to join one of our next classes. And then our older adults services, they have a weekly support group. They also have a weekly, just drop in, like the youth, where they just kind of hang out and play games. So, definitely our older adults have expressed that they're missing that feeling of community by coming in, but they've done really well with learning how to use Zoom and all of our online features. So I think definitely that's been good for them so that they don't feel so alone during this time. And we also offer counseling. Okay, so we made it to the end. I'd like to thank you all for sitting through this training with me, and I hope you really learned something. There's something you can take away. So if there's anything you've experienced during this, or if you're worried about experiencing that we haven't covered, once again, please feel free to reach out to me. I will be more than happy to work with you or to have one of my coworkers be able to work with you. And so final takeaways. So the rose, bud, and the thorn. So normally we discuss at the end with the participants. So a rose is the highlight or the success. What was something positive that you're taking away from this training? The bud, what new ideas have blossomed? And the thorn is a challenge experience or somewhere where you like more support. So just think about those three things, and if anything comes up, once again, reach out to me. So I'd like to thank you, and the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center appreciates your effort in learning about inclusion. Please feel free to reach out with comments, questions, or resource needs. We will be more than happy to help you. And that is my email, dwilliams@mkelgbt.org. So currently we are moving to our new location at 315 West Court Street. It is the original building where the center began. So right now, the building is undergoing some renovations. So we aren't in the office right now, which explains why I don't have a phone number for you to reach out to right now, but definitely an email, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for participating in this training, and I hope at some point we could, do another training or work with you all in some other type of form. Thank you.
.5% of Americans identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. That's 11.3 million American adults. Among millennials, that percentage almost doubles, with 8.1% identifying as LGBTQ+. That means there are over 6 million LGBTQ+ millennials in the United States, and we know that a majority of them are considering becoming parents. Since 1979, Family Equality has been working to advance lived and legal equality for LGBTQ+ families and those who wish to form them. We believe everyone should have the right and opportunity to form and sustain a loving family, regardless of who they are, where they live, or who they love. Family Equality works in 4 different ways to create change. We connect LGBTQ+ families, youth from those families, and prospective parents with each other across the country. We educate by providing important information about paths to parenthood for LGBTQ+ people, and by sharing these stories with their neighbors and allies. We advocate for lived and legal equality through state and national campaigns. We organize LGBTQ+ families, providing opportunities to speak out and take action. Your support and engagement are critical to our success. Visit www.familyequality.org to access resources, take action, and support our work on behalf of LGBTQ+ families nationwide.